Conversations from the front lines of the talent supply chain. This is Higherside Chats. Join us as we delve into the world of talent acquisition and explore the latest trends, challenges, opportunities, strategies, and insights from the best in the business. Get inspired by industry pioneers and seasoned veterans, and discover the secrets to building powerful talent functions from their experiences. Whether you're a CEO, a seasoned HR professional, a growing business looking to scale, or someone just starting in the field, there's something for everyone. Ready for the ultimate recruitment power-up? Let's go.
Welcome once again to another episode of Higherside Chats, your go-to podcast for the latest news, views, and insights from the dynamic landscape in the talent supply chain ecosystem. I'm your host, Sajay. June was a Pride Month, and as we celebrate and learn more about the LGBTQ plus community, we thought it would be fitting to get answers to some tough questions about the LGBTQ plus experience in the workplace. While significant progress has been made in the LGBTQ plus rights in the recent years, the workplace is not the most welcoming space. More than 40% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual people, and almost 90% people have experienced employment discrimination, harassment, or mistreatment. Our guest today is Neelam Jain, a dynamic social entrepreneur and founder of Periphery, the first social enterprise in India dedicated to improving the socio-economic status of the transgender community and fostering workplace inclusion. Under her leadership, Periphery has created jobs for over 260 plus transgender individuals and sensitized more than 22,000 corporate employees across India. Recognized as a TEDx speaker and a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, Neelam is a leading voice in advocating for LGBTQ plus inclusive workplaces. Neelam will share with us diversity imperatives to help us make meaningful progress towards the LGBTQ plus community in the workplace. And how do we make recruitment and the hiring process more inclusive of the talent that comes from this community? Neelam, welcome to Higherside Chats.
Thank you so much, Satish. Absolutely a pleasure. And always very excited to be talking about this because I feel like as organizations and workplaces, we do so much to bring so many diverse communities together. There's so much focus on even bringing persons with disability, but there's a lot of hesitancy. There is a lot of fear that people have when it comes to bringing in transgender people into workplace. So very happy to be talking about this with you today.
Great. So, Neelam, to start with, could you just share a bit about your journey with the LGBTQ plus community and what led you to become an advocate for inclusivity in the workplace?
Yeah. So honestly, this is not something that one plans that I want to grow up and start a diversity and inclusion consulting company or help transgender people get jobs. It's not something that any of it thought of as a career choice as well. So I worked with a financial investment banking firm. I was a financial analyst over there and pretty comfortable at that job. But I first learned about the LGBT community. I got exposed to some of the realities, some of the challenges that the community faces. And even within the LGBT community, the challenges of the transgender community. In Chennai, in India, we see the community at bus stops, we see them at signals, etc. But I don't think any of us have ever seen them in the same building where we live, or nor have we seen the community at shopping malls or hotels or wherever the larger society is even around. So I started learning and understanding about a lot of that because the organization that I worked for was fairly inclusive and drove a lot of awareness. So it started from there. And from there on, I pursued it by myself. I was a volunteer with multiple organizations. I understood what are some of the realities and what are challenges and gaps that are there. It was in about, I think, around 2015, 2016, where I started understanding that there are a lot of NGOs and CBOs that are already working in this space. They're doing commendable work to support the transgender community. But when it came to their livelihood generation, or when it came to actually them becoming financially independent, there was absolutely nothing that was happening, right? And also it was thought that transgender people don't want jobs, or even if they get jobs, they won't do it. There was a lot of stereotyping that was there. There was a prefixed mindset that that's the HR community, a lot of us had. I didn't believe it. I was also about 23 at that age. And I thought that it doesn't look like if somebody got a respectful and a meaningful job, why would they say no to it? Was my thought. So by about 2017, I started Periphery. What the word itself means is as a society, we've pushed some of the people in our society, specifically the transgender community, to the edges, to the peripherals. So our job is to really take them from those peripherals to where they want to be. And where they want to be can be the mainstream or literally anywhere else, where Periphery acts as a facilitator by creating jobs. Yeah, that's the origin and that's the starting of Periphery. It wasn't something that I did or planned off overnight. It took me about 2 years of thinking, volunteering, understanding the community, getting my parents to understand this as well along with me. So a lot of that took place.
Lovely. It was taken you a lot of courage. And I guess the times when you started it, there would have been a lot of opposition from friends, family, and unknown territory. So did you have advisors? Did you have friends who kind of helped you in this journey?
I think fortunately didn't have too many people telling me that you shouldn't do this. I think I always also stood out as a person that, okay, she'll do whatever she wants. No point telling her anything. So, including my parents, and especially if you're like the third child at home, they anyway have very less hopes. They're like, okay, the other two children are doing proper things as per the societal standards. So, we let the third one explore, no problem. So, that's the mindset that my parents had. And in fact, they were very proud. They were very happy. There was some bit of worry that they had because I was letting go of a very financially viable job that I had. And they were also very clear that you can be in this house, but you got to manage your own finances and everything. So that thing I knew I had some runway because I worked in another organization for 2 years. So I had some savings and I thought, let me try. If it works for a year or two, it's okay. Otherwise, I can always go back. But interestingly enough, when I started Periphery in 2017, I found the right kind of people with me. People who were either like me, worked in a corporate and felt like, okay, they wanted to do something else, or people who were from family businesses and felt like they wanted to give or do something that was a little bit more gratifying or more meaningful as well. So the three of us kind of came together after 6 months of me starting. And that team really helped put the entire ground of Periphery together because throughout our initial years, we were only trying to focus on just connecting transgender people to workplaces. And we realized there were a lot of challenges at both ends. Like with the workplaces, the challenge was that how do we ensure that the co-workers are as inclusive and sensitized? Will they be friendly? Will they be accepting? Okay, someone might work with you, but will that person also actually have lunch with you, or will they isolate that person? How would managers react? What washrooms would they use? A lot of those things came up in our first 2 years, and we were literally just firefighting all the time. And then on the other side was, working with the community. I'm not a transgender person myself. So there was also a lot of building trust that we had to do. There's obviously a question, right? Who is she? Why does she want to do it? What is her intention? Especially when you're not from that community. So that trust can only be built by doing work. But you're also not finding people who trust you in the beginning without showing. So it's like a chicken and egg problem. But thankfully, we had a few of them who said that, what, if you have a job, we'll be happy to work over there. So that's how we placed the first few transgender people we know. A friend of mine is doing pretty well for himself and runs the Kolapasi food chain, Mr. Santosh. He was one of the first people to have hired transgender people. So that's where it began for us. It was through small organizations, small retail chains came together. And then now over the years, we also have really big, large corporate partners that we work with.
Great. So you did mention about some of the challenges the community still face at the workplace today. What will help, Neelam, if you can share with us some examples of initiatives or practices that organizations today are following or implementing to foster a more inclusive environment. And I would love to hear how has Perry helped these organizations think about such practices and what help have you provided to these institutions?
Yeah. So I think what we as in the larger society maybe doesn't see is that every small and big thing that we have, right? Like, for example, walking freely on the road, being able to enter a hotel without someone staring at you, not having to explain my gender to my parents, or not begging them, please accept me as who I am, or getting married in the company of my loved ones. All of that is a given for us. We've never had to fight for it. These are like basic human rights for us. But if you look at the transgender community, all of this is a luxury. Walking freely on the road, having your parents who accept you, being able to be in an education system without getting bullied every day is a massive luxury. So the community is coming from a place that right from the time they have come out or they have expressed themselves in a way that is not traditionally accepted in our society, that person is just bound to get discriminated, bullied. It starts very early. It starts from home, then it trickles to school, college, etc. So a lot of the people that we started working with didn't have basic education also in place, didn't have that family support, etc. So they formed their own systems of foster system that we call Guru Chela system, etc., through which they're able to survive, through which they're able to support each other. A lot of the trans people that we work with came from the backgrounds of begging and sex work. Now, if you're engaged in begging every day of your life for like 5 years, and then suddenly one day someone comes and tells you, okay, from tomorrow onwards, you have to sit in an office and stare at this laptop and work, it's a completely different world. There is a lot of fear that is there, even though it's a better place, maybe, because on the road you can get abused, anything can happen to you. So, but there is some sense of comfort that is there because the trans community lives with themselves. So there's a lot of change that they also have to go through. For us, what we realized is that we were dealing with a lot of changes that had to be brought, not just like say within the community from a skilling perspective, but also in the larger employee base itself. So what we started doing was, number one, start upskilling the community. Today, after 7 years of doing this work, we're fortunate enough that we have 2 training centers. One upskilling center is in Bangalore, another one is in Pune. And through these centers, we invite transgender people who come stay with us. They get trained. And then for a period of 2 months, we train them on a lot of corporate job-related skills and then further place them. That's one way that we started mitigating the challenge of skill gap, because you can't literally put a person through an education system again, but you can, of course, upskill them to the point that they get a job. And then the other challenges that we faced was just mindset shift itself. Now, that is not something that can be done in like one sensitization workshop for 2 hours or whatever. So for that also, I think we've realized that, okay, just coming in once, talking to the co-workers or managers doesn't help. There's been many, many layers of sensitization that we've had to do. And even now, it's still not perfect. But the good reality is that now that person at least has some sort of financial independence, right? And at least there's a start and there is a chance that they have in their own life.
So one of the things that I wanted to highlight to you, that a majority of our listeners would be talent acquisition specialists, talent supply chain specialists, representing multitude of organizations. So are there any useful tips that you can provide to them? Because today, many of these organizations do have the right intent, but they may not know what are some of those effective hiring initiatives to attract this talent. They'll not know where to go to. Most of them don't initiate or begin because they just don't understand how to begin. So do you help such organizations walk them through the journey, train the talent acquisition specialists, and help them what to look for and guide them through this process?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my own time goes into that. So there is nothing like, okay, you do these are 5 do's, these are 5 don'ts. There's nothing like that, because this is such a hard-coded reality into us. We are grown up with that thought process. Like when kids don't eat food, parents or mothers tell them that if you don't eat, I will call that person. And we know what they mean by that person. So that mindset is so deeply ingrained in us that even for a HR person who is supposed to be very broad-minded and inclusive of all people, it's not easy for them because they're just brought up with that mindset. But as long as people recognize that, okay, that's not the right way to look at someone, that is also not the right way to treat a community of people just because their identity is different, is the starting point. So some of the things that we do with largely the talent acquisition or the HR community, it starts from firstly understanding who are transgender people, like understanding the diversity of the trans community, who are trans men, who are trans women, who are non-binary transgender people. The awareness of even that is very low. What does it mean for someone to physically transition from male to female or female to male? So again, I mean, I don't want to explain all of those concepts right now, but for anybody who's listening, I think your first step is to just make sure that you understand what does it mean to identify as a transgender person. And then I think secondly, what we start looking at is to understand how this plays out at the workplace. So what does a manager do or a HR person do while bringing in someone into the organization? There is a checklist, of course, that we have. So ensuring that there are inclusive or gender neutral restrooms. Even if we don't have a third restroom, which is gender neutral or so, then ensuring that we sensitize our co-workers so that, when a trans woman enters women's restroom, the larger cisgender population or the women population is not staring at them, not making faces, etc. Those are very minor things to look at. When you're interviewing someone who's a transgender person, seeing them for who they are and what they can bring in. And also recognizing that this is a community that is coming from a place of deep marginalization. If you're expecting all people from the trans community to perform like how someone from an IIM or an IIT would perform is not fair. You're not even giving them a head start. So a lot of the organizations that we work with have buddy programs in place. They have specific mentorship programs in place. Recently, we partnered with KPMG for this program, wherein they took about 10 of our candidates that we placed in different organizations, paired them with their senior leaders, and actually coached them for a period of 3 months. Because the transgender community needs that. We've had organizations that have funded our upskilling program because they realized that somebody has to put in the money for the community to get upskilled. There are many other things to take care as well, like when a transgender person is entering the workplace, their IDs may not match how they prefer to be called. A trans man's legal ID might say female and might have a female name on it typically. But then how do you call them? How do you ensure that you're giving them that respect and actually creating that inclusive workspace? So a lot of those things have to be taken care of. But there's one thing I tell the HR community specifically is that it's not so complicated. It's definitely not even rocket science or anything. It is just basically understanding the human being for who they are and ensuring that the workplace is also being as compassionate. And sometimes compassion also doesn't work. We know that there are people at a workplace who will still make fun, who will still do things that are inappropriate. In that case, the organization standing up and saying that we will not tolerate this. Even if you're not inclusive at heart, we don't care. But these are your co-workers. The organization stands for creating equal opportunities, and the organization wants to create opportunities for those who are marginalized. So having that kind of leadership voice, having that kind of top-down approach is very important. And again, there are organizations wherein there is a lot of people at the ground level, at the bottom level who bring about change. They run ERGs, which are creating a lot of awareness about communities like the LGBT community itself.
Right. I think, Neela, one of the things that have happened, I don't know if you will agree with me, but I think organizations have become a lot more sensitive to inclusivity. But I feel that we have a different problem here. More than abuse at the workplace or making fun, I feel people are indifferent and they just stay away from consciously attempting to include them in the larger environment because they just don't know what to do. Am I saying the right things? Am I addressing the person right? So there's a lot of lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, which leads to people thinking maybe it's right to not do anything about it and just stay away. So have you come across such people in organizations, and how do you deal with them? How do you get them to start becoming inclusive, make an attempt to include the other community into the larger ecosystem and so on?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's majority of the population. Like you said, everybody is sometimes very passively inclusive, but at heart, it is not there. And that shows at some point or the other, it definitely shows. And, it also makes the person who's come in, the transgender person, really feel isolated and not feel like, okay, they even belong at the workplace. So it's a very real and a very valid problem that exists. I think the first things is to help our co-workers understand that you're not dealing with people, who are not from this world. They're just human. They're just as human as you are. They watch the same kind of Vijay movies and all of that. These are just real human who are just probably wanting to be treated the way that you're treated. It starts from there, but then it also goes to more practical things, right? I think the biggest challenge people face is, how do I call this person? What are the right pronouns to use? I mean, I don't assume your name, right? Like, so I see your name, it's written Satish. I see someone else's name, and that's how I call them. In case your name was not written here, I would ask you, what's your name? So same thing that you do if you're interacting with someone from the transgender community. It's like, how would you like to be called? What pronouns can I use for you? There is absolutely no shame, no fear in asking someone for their name or for their pronouns. It should be as normalized as asking someone for their name. And if you feel hesitant in asking someone for their pronouns, then you can always say, hey, my name is Neelam. I go by the pronouns she, her. What about you? So that way you're also not putting someone at the spot. You're giving away your name and your pronouns as well. It starts off with small things, but I've realized, and I mean, we've placed about 530 plus transgender people as of to date across different organizations. And we've realized that it eases with time. Even for the person who's coming in, right? The transgender person who's entering the workplace, there's a lot of fear that they also have. Will they be accepted? Will they be treated the right way? They could have a lot of trigger points as well. So it does ease with time when both the ends understand that the intent is not bad. So yeah, I mean, I think it really starts off with small steps. And I've seen that the talent acquisition and the HR community really plays a very important role here. Actively having sensitization programs is very, very important. It can't be a one-time effort that we do once in a year during the Pride Month. It has to be something that happens more often, like at least once in 3 months, a refresher course on, what does it mean to identify as LGBTQ? You said this in the beginning as well, that LGBT folks already exist in our system, already exist in our workplace. It's not that they're not there. You can, of course, very visibly hire someone, but there are people who are already there. There's a reason why you don't know them, because they haven't come out. Maybe they fear what will happen if they come out. Maybe they fear that they will lose the next promotion, or they will get made fun of, or they will just be isolated itself, right? So you're thinking that, okay, I can make jokes, or because no one around is there who is from this community, is also not the right way to look at it.
Before I go to my last question, I just want to understand, how did you name the organization Periphery? Is there a story behind that, and what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, so there's definitely a very long story to it, but a very short summary of this is that me and a bunch of friends were sitting together and we thought about a word that helps us explain that we as a society have pushed the transgender community to the edge. Nobody wants to be on the peripherals of the society. Nobody wants to be isolated. Somebody has pushed someone, right? Consciously, unconsciously, it has happened. So that's the word we started off with. We did a little bit of wordplay on it. And then we thought, what is our role? Our role is to take people who are on the peripherals, who are on these edges, who are isolated, who have been pushed to the fringes, and how we can take them from where they are to where they want to be. So that's the meaning of the word periphery, to take people from where they are to where they really want to be. And where they want to be can be a workplace, can be mainstream, or us just being able to be that facilitator where they're able to be their best version, or be more confident as well.
Awesome, Neil. Very interesting. So as we wrap up, and then we have a quick rapid fire question round. We'll just ask you 3-4 questions, and we request you to keep your answers brief. But before that, one last question. What advice would you give today's employees, both within the community as well as the allies? How can they effectively contribute to creating more inclusive workplaces? I mean, what is the average employee on the floor? What is his or her, role as such?
Yeah, I think it starts off by understanding that this is not a workplace agenda. This is not something that, okay, because my CEO told me or because now the new HR person is pushing all these new things. It's not that. LGBT inclusion is a very real thing. You can have anybody in your family who identifies as gay or lesbian or trans. It can also be your own parents. We never think of it from that lens because everybody has sort of had to conceal their identity. A lot of people have had to. So understanding that this is a very real topic and this can be very close to home as well. We don't think of things like these very personally unless and until it touches our home, unless and until our kid comes out and tells that, Ma, I'm gay, Ma, I'm trans, right? So to think that, okay, this is a very natural human process itself. That's number one. I think what employees can do and should absolutely do is volunteer outside of the organization, because if you want to learn more, if you want to engage, and I tell this very openly, is that as someone who is not trans and who has worked with and for the community for the past 7 years, I have learned so much. I have grown so much. My own thinking, my own perspective, my own growth has been incredible. So, I mean, of course, I really have tried to give my best to the community, but I think I have received so much more. So you evolve and you grow as a human being when you learn more about diverse communities, and especially those that are at the center of marginalization itself. So it starts out by simple volunteering, especially in cities like Chennai, Coimbatore, etc. We have so many NGOs that do incredible work. It barely takes us any time, even 1 hour per week or 1 hour per month. You can go and train someone who needs those skills. And because of your effort, someone might be at a workplace tomorrow. The other thing can be really as small as if somebody in your workplace comes out. But coming out is a very lengthy process, but sometimes you might have someone who just comes out saying that I'm a trans person. How do you react at that moment? How much support you show? Or just sort of listening and not really making it about you or giving your opinion is absolutely important. So showing up with a lot of kindness, practicing it in action, and not seeing this as I need to be inclusive at workplace and then I'll go back home and I'll make those jokes again. It's not that. So really making it a part of your DNA and something that you can practice on a day-to-day basis is important.
Great, thanks for that, Neelam. So we'll just quickly go through our rapid fire question round. I know that June was a Pride Month. So what does a Pride Month mean to you personally?
To me, it is actually one of the most exciting months of the year because, of course, Pride started as a protest. That's the origin of the Pride Month. It started as a lot of the community members coming together and saying enough is enough, we're here, and rallying and all of that. But for me personally, it's a celebration of the community, of them just unquestionably or like without any sort of remorse being their best version, then all of us celebrating them. So for me, pride is equivalent to just happiness, proud, and creating that space for the communities and for people to just be themselves.
Any memorable Pride moment that stands out to you that you would like to share with our listeners?
Sure. I mean, we have a lot of those moments almost every day because of the nature of the work that we do. But I think in the last month, we had one of our trainees who had come back. And this was a person that we had placed at Walmart, one of the leading retail firms, but they have a tech back office in Bangalore. She's been placed there. She got promoted last month after 3 years of working there. And she came back and she also offered that, okay, my salary is grown, this is grown. I want to contribute back to Periphery. So we, of course, told her, no, that's fine. But it was very nice to see the people that we've been able to kind of touch and sort of see them grow in their own lives. And that's immense because when they grow, they also positively impact their own community. They're able to influence so many others and they don't necessarily need a Periphery to move forward.
So, Neelam, who's your biggest inspiration? I mean, do you have a mentor who kind of guides you? Because sometimes, especially an initiative like this will require a lot of courage, will require a lot of advice. So do you have someone like that in your life?
Yes. I mean, today we do have an advisory committee. We're fortunate enough to have that. And personally, some of them are my mentors. And my mentors are usually some people who are just literally a call away and who've guided me through all of that. But inspiration as such is my father. He's about like 65 right now. and he has the excitement for life, and he has the kind of aspiration to do so much more in his life, even in his 60s. Sometimes I wonder, what am I doing looking at him and his energy? But yeah, I mean, any organization that is, especially in the social sector space, that has done really well is because some of these mentors who've really come together and supported us.
Okay. The last question, what message would you like to share with the TQ Plus youth today?
Yeah. I mean, as someone who's not from the community, I don't know if I've earned it to kind of give a message, but I do want to say that you have a lot of people rallying for you. You have a lot of organizations that are right behind you, and you're not alone, is all I want to say.
Great. Thank you very much, Neelam. This was, I mean, personally for me, an eye-opener. A lot of interesting suggestions that you gave, which I will personally ensure I implement at the workplace that I belong to.
Very nice.
But I really am in awe of the work that you're doing. And anybody who's listening to you, I'm sure would be inspired the work that all of you are doing at Periphery. And I do hope that we all get an opportunity to contribute in our own small way. But thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you talking to us, and best wishes. I'd like to see Periphery grow leaps and bounds and contribute to creating an inclusive workplace. Thank you very much, Neelam.
No, thank you so much. This was absolutely a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
To those who are tuned in, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Join us next time for another episode to bring you the latest and the best from the world of talent and HR. And find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Don't miss a single episode. And do subscribe to High Side Chats today.